Are you a two-income household earning good money, but at the end of the month you still feel broke? Well, that's probably because you're a parent. It is a very difficult time for all Australians and particularly parents. According to the NAB Consumer Stress Index, the top 3 drivers of family anxiety are cost of living, job security, and ability to fund retirement. That's why today we are doing a parent lifestyle audit. I am exposing all the big structural costs as well as some of those small, seemingly innocent daily costs that add up when you become a parent. And more importantly, I'm really going to dive into specific and tangible ways that you can save money. These are ways that I save thousands of dollars every single year and millions of dollars over the course of my child's lifetime. Last week on the My Family Strategist podcast, we created a family budget, which is a multiple account system designed to give you increased visibility and control over your spending. And today we're really putting that to work to identify ways that we can cut spending altogether on things that we do not value and that we do not need. My name is Christina Spark. Welcome to the My Family Strategist podcast. I'm a former chartered accountant. I hold a master's in professional accounting. I have 15 years of corporate experience working with some of the most successful companies globally, but I am also a very proud mom and the chief operating officer of my own home. Let's go to our disclaimer and start the show. The information provided in this podcast is for general education and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, or legal advice. While I am a former chartered accountant, I am not your accountant and I do not know your specific financial situation. You should always consult with a licensed financial advisor or professional before making any significant financial decisions. First, let's talk about where all your money is going. If you are a parent, 2 things are happening at the same time. Number 1, there are big structural changes that occur when you go from being child-free to a parent. Those are lost wages and lost superannuation. If you take parental leave or work part-time, that is obviously a huge difference in terms of income coming in. The motherhood penalty shows that women earn 55% less than men in the first 5 years after having a child, and that gap is still very significant even 10 years later. This also causes a large gap in superannuation balance because while you're not earning money or you're working part-time, you are not contributing to your super most of the time. And that results in a big gender disparity at the time of retirement. Women have between 20 to 35% less than men on average in their superannuation. Looking at a household unit, assuming you're married, that is a big gap in terms of the amount of income you have coming in compared to, let's say, a double income household with no children. The second large structural change that occurs when you become a parent is this is typically the time after your first child where you look around and say, we need more space. You've outgrown your current environment that suited you very well when you were a child-free couple. Perhaps you're in a 2-bedroom apartment and that was just fine. And now you really want to move for a larger family. If you're buying a home for the first time or renting a larger space with a backyard, that is a significant increase in terms of your monthly expenses. Thirdly, car upgrades, similar category. Often when you have a child, you don't realize the necessity of having a second car and or having a larger vehicle. My husband and I used to have a sedan when we were child-free that we shared, and that worked really well. When I went on parental leave, now I need my own car and I don't want a small car. I want a medium SUV so that I can comfortably get the car seat in or the capsule and the pram and the boot. You often do need to upgrade to a second car. Next, we have childcare costs, which are enormous here in Australia. And this really depends how much you pay out of pocket based on how much you earn. That impacts your subsidy. If you are a higher income earner that does not get subsidy or gets a low amount of subsidy and you're going 5 days a week, that's over $50,000 every year in a city like Sydney. That is a huge annual and monthly bill that you now have to swallow just for the privilege of working. The 5th one is private school fees. The average Australian spends $350,000 over the 13-year-long education period per child. If you go to an elite, more expensive private school, now we're talking upwards of $650,000 in terms of just the expense of tuition, and that doesn't include any ancillary costs or any hidden lifestyle costs that come with going to a private school. And those are just the big structural changes that are happening. The other thing that happens when you become a parent is what I call death by 1,000 cuts. Your daily expenses increase. It's those small little things that you don't realize that really add up. Your grocery bills go up. That's another mouth to feed. And you're really willing to pay for convenience because you're time poor. So you end up spending that premium on snacks and you succumb to marketing scams and convenience packaged foods. You also have an increase in your daily costs of water, your electricity, everything goes up. You're suddenly doing laundry more often. You're going through more laundry detergent. You have more disposable things in the early years of life, nappies and wipes. Clothes your kids wear one season and then it's done. So you're getting hit with both things at the same time. Big structural changes and also those daily death by 1,000 cuts that also happen when you become a parent. So that is why today we are going to go through from easiest to hardest to implement ways that you can save money. These are practical ways that I save money that I'm going to be sharing with you today. All right, the number one easiest way that you can save more money is actually making more money and getting a raise. This assumes you just request a raise from your employer and it's granted to you, doing the same job and the same hours, but getting paid more to do it. That is, of course, going to be the best and easiest path. Could you put together a business case that incorporates inflation, the value you provide to the company, some of your accomplishments, benchmark or market research that justifies an increase in pay? Or could you go and seek out another job offer, take that to your employer and ask them to match it, or actually change jobs? If you are doing shift work, taking extra shifts, weekends, evenings, anything that you can squeeze in, is there a way you can make more money? So getting a raise is the easiest. Obviously, seeking out another job, interviewing, that is a lot more effort. But this could be a great way to help with this problem, is make a bit more money. The big caveat here is that if you do earn more money, you need to ensure that that incremental income stream is going directly to your savings and investing, and you are not just going to be spending, which is what has gotten us into this problem in the first place, is that our spending tends to increase at the same rate at which we are earning. So that is the big caveat there. There's so much information about side hustles. I feel like everyone is trying to get a side hustle right now. Yes, earning more income there would be great. The challenge when you're a parent is that parenting is the side hustle, and you may not be willing to sacrifice your weekends and evenings that you get with your child to earn more money. But if you already have a side hustle, if you're able to do a little bit more, get a second job, something you really enjoy, that could be a fantastic way to increase your income and improve your financial situation. Next are some of the more daily decisions that you can make that save you money. These are all things that I do that save my family thousands of dollars per year. So let's talk about groceries. Buying the adult version of the same thing is a great way to save on money if you have kids. And I know you want to pay for convenience, but make sure that you look at the dollar per 100 grams or dollar per kilo in the label. It makes it much easier to compare and contrast. For example, buying a block of cheese and chopping it up into pieces instead of string cheese. $15 per kilo for cheese, $44 per kilo for cheese string. That's 3 times the price, or 193% more expensive. Or buying a large tub of yogurt and putting that in a refillable yogurt pouch. Yogurt, 60 cents per 100 grams. A pouch of yogurt, $1.80 per 100 grams. That's also 200% more expensive. Toddler puffs really get me because you pay $4 for essentially 5 cents worth of corn. And I know that toddlers love them, but they provide such little nutrition. Rice crackers, for example, $1 per 100 grams. Veggie puffs, about $18 per 100 grams. So 18x more expensive. A lot of toddler foods are marketed as healthy when in fact they are not. And I like to use the rule that if it comes in a packet with a health claim on it, it probably isn't healthy. Apples do not have stickers of health claims on them. They don't need to do that to convince you to buy it. The other general rule of thumb I use is if I look at the ingredients and there's anything on there I cannot pronounce or anything I could not find in my own kitchen pantry, that means it's likely an ultra-processed food. And that, by definition, is not very healthy. So, of course, you need to apply an 80-20 rule to this. I'm not saying never buy convenience foods, but you'll be shocked at how much that adds up to your grocery bill every week and every month. The other thing is you could subsidize 1 plant-based meal a week, maybe 2 plant-based meals. We eat a lot of tofu in our house. A huge block of tofu that would feed an entire 4-person family is $2. It's very protein rich. It's very easy to cook. We just chop it up and throw it in the pan with some oil for 8 minutes. Throw that in a curry or in a stir fry, something with lots of sauce. You won't even miss the meat. The other thing I love to do is make big batches on the weekends of healthy muffins, breakfast cookies. I really like baking, so it's enjoyable for me, but I do recognize this is more work. I love to get my toddler involved. We love to cook together these types of foods, make big batches, throw it in the freezer, and then over the next 1 or 2 weeks, you can easily just grab and go. When my brother had his 2 little girls, my 2 nieces, and they were on pureed food, they would take whatever they're eating for dinner, put it in a blender, blend it up, and feed it to their child. They didn't seek out additional recipes. Whatever they were eating, they just blended that up. And I thought that was a really brilliant and cost-effective way to get pureed food, because that prep can be very time-consuming when you're in that puree stage. Some of my favorite low-effort, cheap snacks are things like organic peas and organic edamame. All you have to do is defrost and serve. It's really healthy. We also pretty much exclusively buy berries, organic and frozen, because it's so much cheaper and you get organic food for a fraction of the cost. Because it's frozen, when packed and delivered that way, it's just so much cheaper for transportation costs. So you end up saving a lot of money. It's even more nutritious because it is organic and doesn't have pesticides. I know the texture is going to be different, but you can mix it into oats and even just serve it as is. In the same vein, be aware of anything that's baby safe, like baby safe laundry detergents or surface cleaners. A lot of them are just fragrance-free versions of the same thing. I'm not an expert on this. It's something you could ask your dermatologist or your doctor, but things like baby wash instead of the adult version for sensitive skin is likely not to be very different. And if you don't have any specific skin conditions, you can likely get away with saving lots of money by just buying the adult version of the exact same thing. Asking AI to compare and contrast is a great way that I also do this. I will just take a picture of the product, insert a prompt, and ask, what is the actual difference between these 2 items, if it actually means any difference whatsoever, to get a baby version versus an adult version. All right, activities and sports. This also is where things can add up. And I know it's really fun to do soccer and swimming and gymnastics and gymboree, but I am conscious of the fact that these companies are subscription based. And here's the problem with subscription based. Whether you utilize it or not, you are still going to pay. I got locked into swimming. Every week I had to pay. And it was very hard to make a class if I missed it. If I was just doing one swimming class a month, like I was in the peak of cold and flu season when my toddler was sick all the time, I was paying $100 per class. So that is a way that it can really get you. And it's just good to be aware of subscriptions versus paying for things one-off. Going and paying the drop-in at your local pool so you're not locked into recurring. And I know it's really normal in Australia to start your child in swimming lessons at 3 months. I did the same. But as a Canadian, I just wondered, does it make any difference by the time our kids are adults if they start swimming at 3 months versus 3 years or 5 years? I'm going to guess not, although I couldn't be bothered to research that. Playgroups at churches, I'm really into that for toddlers. They end up being like $5. It's heavily subsidized by the church. And I know that it is at a church, and for people who are not religious, that can sometimes be a deterrent, but typically they don't go overboard on Jesus. So I have found that to be a fantastic activity. Lots of free activities like going to the library for rhyme time, play dates at the park, or going to the zoo can be pretty cost effective if you get an annual membership and you are going really frequently. Kids' clothes is another big area that I save money by buying secondhand and buying off-season and buying up. You typically cannot get even 2 seasons or 2 years out of kids' clothes because they outgrow it so quickly. So buying expensive things is truly, in my opinion, a waste of money. I do like to buy a few nice things, but you can buy high-quality brands secondhand on Marketplace or going to op shops. Kids' toys fall into the same category. Don't buy new. Buying secondhand wherever you can save a ton of money. One tip I do have, if you are someone who loves online shopping and loves clothes and buying new things, add it to your cart, but wait 24 hours before you actually purchase. Because this does 2 things. Number 1, it delays gratification and it forces you to wait and reflect if you really need that. And I understand that you are going to risk it being sold out, but it's only 24 hours. The other thing that it does is marketers tend to target customers who've added items to their cart but have not checked out. I know this because I used to work with marketers all the time. So often it's an automated process that they'll actually target you with a promo code sent to your email if you have something in your cart. So it could be a way that you get discounts. I also use AI to ask for promo codes every time I buy anything, pretty much. Basically enter a prompt, get it to scour the internet and identify a few possible promo codes. Sometimes you can get lucky there. And lastly, kids' parties. Can we just agree that kids' parties should be for milestones only and not every year? They're really expensive. And I think a great way to save a bit of money is going to a park, even saying no gifts, because then it removes any expectation you'll provide entertainment or food or party bags. I know kids' parties can be really fun, but they sure do add up. All right, so hopefully you have a couple of takeaways there where you can save a little bit money in terms of those daily expenses that are recurring. But now I really want to get into what are the big lifestyle changes you can make. These are the things that are harder to implement, but can be the difference of not saving a few $1,000s a year, but saving hundreds of thousands to even millions of dollars over the duration of your children's lives. We are going to go through from easiest to hardest to implement ways that you can save money. Downgrading to one car is the easiest way to add an extra $1,000 every month to your bank account. In Australia, the average cost to own a second small SUV is $12,500 per year. So if you can downgrade to a car, if you can make it work with public transportation, that is going to be a great way to save money. If you do need to buy a second car, and this is what we did, is we bought a second electric vehicle. Many Australian employers offer a fringe benefit tax exempt Novated lease for electric vehicles, which is essentially a company car that you're able to lease, and you get to pay for that with pre-tax dollars instead of after-tax dollars. So immediately you're saving thousands of dollars just by paying with pre-tax money. Electric vehicles often have a higher purchase price up front, but your weekly running costs of that vehicle, like right now, we're dealing with fuel shortages and very high price of oil. You're probably feeling that at the pump right now. It can reduce the operational costs of owning a car by about 70%. And of course, there is an environmental impact as well, which is another reason that our family personally wanted to get an electric vehicle. Let's talk about childcare. So childcare is a necessary cost. The ways in which I am reducing my childcare costs is I have found a small council-run, not-for-profit daycare. And these are rare little gems. They are the vast minority. Most daycares in Australia are for-profit. Nonprofit ones are great because the fees are significantly lower. So in my area, it's about $180 per day to go to daycare. My not-for-profit is $90 per day, so it's half the price. And yes, those nonprofit centers are typically eligible for childcare subsidy as well. I do have to provide lunch and the hours are a bit more limited. However, I'm saving, by my calculation, $10,000 per year by switching 2 days a week to a nonprofit center. That also allows me to avoid Mondays and Fridays because those have the most public holidays. And if you go to a for-profit center and you're paying for public holidays, you're not getting the benefit and it's a waste of money. A lot of times nonprofit daycares are actually run even better than for-profit because they are not incentivized to cut costs through reduced staff or resources, lower quality food, or any of the other incentives that unfortunately for-profit daycares have to manage. A lot of time a non-for-profit is actually a higher standard of care as well. Of course, this is not going to work for everyone because of the reduced hours, but is it something that you could consider? Do you have flexibility in your week, or do you have any grandparents or other people that might be able to help with the drop-off or pickup schedule? Could be a great way to save some money. And the other thing that I'm planning to do in New South Wales is send my child to preschool when they turn 4. If you live in other states like Victoria and South Australia, you're just going to get free preschool at 3 to 4 anyways. Lucky you. In New South Wales, it's still heavily subsidized and it's not based on your income. Everybody is eligible for the Start Strong Relief Subsidy, which means preschool ends up being between $10 to $20 per day net out of pocket. And again, these are nonprofit community preschools, which means that they are reinvesting any profits back into the center, into hiring great staff, and the whole focus is on school preparation. So it's typically more academically focused. So that's another way that I'm personally saving money on my childcare costs. The next one is if you are considering to send your kids to private school, or maybe you've already sending your kids to private school, I would urge you to check out my episode, Is Private School Worth It? The average cost of education in private school in Australia is $350,000 over 13 years. If you go to an elite school, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, that could be more like $50,000 per year in tuition. That's $650,000 over 13 years multiplied by the number of children you have. If instead you were to invest that money into property, into the share market, getting an average rate of return of 8 or 9%, now we're talking millions of dollars. And guess what? You can still help your child succeed in life by investing that on their behalf, building a bit of a nest egg, and providing them with that. So this is a strategic choice that my family has made. We will not be sending our child to an expensive elite private school. Instead, I'll be giving him a house. And if I ever feel guilty that I didn't send him to private school, I'll be like, here's your house. And I'm pretty sure he's going to forgive me. And I understand that everybody wants to do what's best for their kids. And I don't think it's even a question if private schools are better in the sense of smaller classroom sizes, more resources than public schools. They definitely are. However, the research shows that it makes no difference in terms of life outcomes, children that go to private school versus public school. And I'd encourage you to do a little social experiment. Next time you're at the workplace or out at a dinner party, maybe just ask people if they went to private or public school. And you might find that there's actually a mix of people and you're doing the exact same thing. You all work at the same company. You're all out at the same dinner. I did this recently. We hosted a neighbor's night and I found out that it was about 50-50. And guess what? We all bought the same house down the street from each other. So what does that tell you about life outcomes? We can talk all day about saving $100 a week on yogurt, or you can make this type of a decision. My child's only 2 years old, which means I have heaps of time to figure out high school. I don't plan to send him to a bad public school either. I certainly plan to send him to a good public school or a low-cost Catholic school or private school. There are other options. The next one is move. I call this geographic arbitrage. Can you move to a place where the cost of living is lower and perhaps even get paid a little bit more money? That could be as simple as renting 2 suburbs further away from the city. You might save 40% on rent. And you don't even necessarily have to downgrade homes. You might even get more space for less money in an area like that. And I recognize that that is a big trade-off to make, to increase commute time possibly, or to move away from family and friends. So it may not make sense for everyone, but that is going to be a big decision that can save you thousands of dollars every week. The other thing is if you're moving to an area with a lower cost of living, childcare is likely to go down as well. It depends on commute, it depends on your job, if you have the ability to work remotely, but this can be a huge one, especially if you look up moving somewhere for the next 10 years, how much you can save is actually ridiculous. So for myself, I live in Sydney. I would love to live on the beach. That would be just a dream come true. But I cannot justify the $3 to $6 million premium I would pay on a home to live at the beach versus driving 30 minutes to still go to the beach every single weekend. For me, it just makes more financial sense not to live in an area like that. And I know everyone's values are different, but choosing to live a little bit further out, but still in a great area, is a very strategic decision to save money. The other thing I do want to mention briefly is if you are able to contribute to your super while you are on parental leave, that is going to be one way that you can minimize the impact of taking a career break is by maxing out your concessional contributions in your super. So you can check out some of my other videos. I have my Investing 101 video or the video that I created on tracking your family's net worth. I go more into the benefits of investing in your super early, and I'll link that in the show notes of this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of My Family Strategist. I hope you walked away with at least 1 or 2 ideas on how you can save a little bit of money, perhaps some food for thought and discussion for your partner. Please share this episode with your time-poor parent friends, anyone who you think could benefit. And if you found it helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. I hope you have a fantastic day.